Hey, what's happening, second grade? It's Mr. Corcoran, and I am excited to be with you again. Today, we're going to cover a new lesson, Alexander the Great, Part 1. That's not Part 2. We're going to start with Part 1, and it's a two-part series, very interesting, about a really incredible leader and soldier and thinker from ancient Greece. Now, before we begin, I want to give a special shout-out to Evan and Mrs. Steggy's class. Hey, Evan, how's it going? And we're also going to need to know some words for this story, some vocabulary. The first word that you need to know is the word ambitious. Ambitious means having a strong desire for success or achievement. The ambitious salon owner was willing to work hard for her new business. I think there's a lot of ambitious second grade students out there. Some that are really ambitious about math, some ambitious about reading. But ambitious means you want to work really hard at something. Devoted. The word devoted means a feeling of strong loyalty or commitment. The devoted couple celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary with their family and friends. So in this story, Alexander the Great has a really devoted following of soldiers and people that want to follow him. Retreat means to run away from or withdraw from. To withdraw or go back. The barking dog caused the little boy to retreat from the fence. If you've ever had that happen, you know what the word retreat means. And then tame. Tame means like to make gentle or obedient. The animal trainer works to tame a tiger for the show. And training and taming tigers is a popular thing nowadays. Alrighty. The next word the next part is there's a few things that you need to know from our last lesson that'll kind of play into this one that'll help. Who were Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle? Socrates was a great thinker of Greece. He always questioned things and asked the question, how do you know? Or why? Why do you think that's true? And then the philosopher Plato, not Plato, he was also an athlete, but he was a great thinker, and he thought that we needed to prove things or have proof, and it's the basis for modern science is to have proof for something, to show that it's provable, to do an experiment and prove your theory. Aristotle, he wanted to start at the beginning and not say, this is what we think something is, or this is how we think it works, but what do we know about it, and let that lead us to our conclusions. And that is also the basis for the scientific process, to do research and to see what that research shows. How were these philosophers connected? Well, Socrates taught Plato and taught Aristotle. And what is philosophy? Philosophy is just thinking about life and trying to answer really hard questions, really big questions. That is philosophy. All right. Why are Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle remembered thousands of years later? Well, they were just great thinkers. And like I said, that's the basis for science and also what we call the Socratic method, to ask, how do you know? Ask lots of questions, kids. All right, so listen carefully to find out if your predictions are correct about the story about Alexander the Great. So in order to do that, you're going to have to make a prediction right now. Make a prediction. What do you think? Why do you think he's so great? And what do you think is going to happen in his story? It might be different than you think. Let's find out. So I am going to disappear myself here. Boom. And let's get started. Largest screen. There we go. Oh, haha. I know why I turned my camera off. I have my glasses. Gotta read my glasses. Psh, psh. To the north of the Greek city-states and of Mount Olympus lay a territory known as Macedonia. The Macedonian king Philip II watched and waited as the Greek city-states struggled among themselves for power and wealth after the Persian Wars. It seemed that they could work together brilliantly when they're faced with a common enemy such as Persia, but afterward they would go back to competing against one another. Away from all these conflicts, King Philip grew stronger. King Philip of Macedonia had a plan. He would let the rest of the Greeks wear themselves out fighting one another, and then he would lead his army south to unite all of Greece under his command. Philip also had a son who was expected to follow in his footsteps and take over the throne one day. The boy was a bold, handsome, curly-haired youngster named Alexander. At first, Philip was a bit disappointed when it became clear that Alexander would not grow up to be a tall, strapping fellow like his father. Philip wondered, how can someone Alexander's size become a great warrior and commander like me? Well, he soon realized that he had nothing to worry about. Alexander was determined to be the best at everything he did. He constantly practiced with sword and spear, hour after hour. Even full-grown soldiers told one another, "Keep your guard up when you practice against Prince Alexander, or you will find his sword pointed at your throat." Alexander trained himself to swim in icy rivers and run for miles without stopping. He became an excellent wrestler and champion horseman, and was constantly challenging other riders. But Alexander was more than strong and sturdy. He was intelligent too. Realizing this, Philip told his son, "I have arranged to have the greatest thinker in the world come here to teach you. He is the famous Aristotle. Treat him with respect." Alexander came to love and honor the wise Aristotle, and tried to learn all that he could from him. Pleased with his student, Aristotle taught the prince more than science and mathematics. He also tried to pass along all that the Greeks, especially the Athenians, had learned about the civilized, well-balanced life. Alexander also loved to study the poems of Pindar. Alexander listened when Aristotle taught him the importance of observing and studying facts before making decisions. However, the prince's energetic nature caused him to use this lesson in ways far different than those of the quiet scientists had imagined. Once, one famous example occurred when Alexander was in his early teens and set his eyes on a magnificent horse named Bucephalus. Alexander told his father's groomsman that that is the horse I want to ride. The head groomsman bowed. "I am sorry, Your Highness. I cannot let you ride that horse for your own safety. No one can ride Bucephalus. One of our greatest horsemen tried yesterday, and even he broke his leg." Alexander realized he would have to use his mind as well as his muscles to tame the horse. "I must think this through," he told himself. He watched as one rider after another led the huge horse out of the wooden fence and tried to mount the saddle. Alexander noticed something that no one else had seen. The prince realized why the big fellow is frightened each time he sees his own shadow moving before him on the ground. He becomes so nervous that he throws off anyone who tries to ride him. Alexander took some sugar out to the horse. "Here, boy, eat this," he said, and then he turned Bucephalus around in the other direction so that the sun was facing the opposite way, and that the horse could not see his shadow. Then Alexander easily climbed into the saddle. Everyone was amazed. Alexander rode the huge horse all afternoon. Even King Philip came out to watch, grinning at his son. "He's not so bad," called Alexander, grinning back. Finally, Bucephalus trusted Alexander so much that the boy could lead him to do anything, even with his shadow in front of him. Bucephalus became Alexander's horse, and Alexander so loved the horse that later he named a city after him. Soon Alexander was leading troops into battle for his father. He developed a habit that stayed with him all of his life. He always rode in the front line of fighters. The soldiers were so proud of the brave prince and loved him for taking risks as great as those he asked them to take. A number of times when a battle might have been lost, Alexander would yell, "Charge!" and ride ahead. His devoted soldiers would think, "We cannot let him be killed or captured," and they had no choice but to follow him into battle and win the battle, for they knew that Alexander would never retreat. At last, King Philip felt that he and his son were ready to conquer the Greeks, who were south of Macedonia. Then, a stroke of good luck, they found a better way. Their old foe, Persia, once again came after the Greek cities. Philip told the other leaders of Greece, "I will lead you against Persia." A few protested, but Philip and Alexander quickly invaded their cities and conquered them by force. People in the other city-states, weakened by war, were afraid to go up against the powerful Macedonian army. And then King Philip died. At the age of 20, Alexander became king of Macedonia. Although young in years, Alexander led his army through Greece, fighting and conquering when he needed to, and accepting surrender when he could. He generously gave gifts to the peoples and cities that welcomed him, while giving no mercy to those who opposed him. At last, all of Greece hailed Alexander as their king, but Greece was not enough for this ambitious king. He put one of his trusted advisors in charge of Greece and announced, "It is time to end the Persian threat once and for all, and to call Persia my own." With that, Alexander set out on his greatest adventure.